Alright guys, this was the last topic in section 3, and the topic is the nature of man's search for God, and this is part 3 of that. If you've been wanting to tie everything together that I believe and that I've stated to this point, this would be the topic for you to watch. I clearly state the premises that I've put forward, why I believe them, and how my search came to be, how I pursued it, and the conclusions that I drew at the end of it here. Like I said, the next section, section 4, is kind of a mishmash of odds and ends stuff, so for all intents and purposes, this is the end of my book as far as the things we've spoken of to this point are concerned. That's not to say not to watch section 4, because it consists of several topics that didn't fit into the book proper, but that I still wanted to touch on. So there's still some interesting things in section 4, but they're going to be, I'm pretty sure, relatively short videos, and like I said, just odds and end topics of things that I've thought about and I feel like God's given me some insight into. So, I'm going to be quiet and let you listen to this. God bless you. Section 3, Topic 6. The nature of man's search for God. Part 3. My conclusion concerning the universe and my place in it. I would now like to present you with the conclusion that I have drawn from my own personal study, research, and lengthy journey of the soul in my determined and resolute quest to discover the truth. Please keep in mind that these are my experiences and conclusions. You must take what you believe and determine for yourselves what conclusions you will reach. I came to my search from the point of view of having always believed in God as the creator and sustainer of all things. To me it seemed like a no-brainer. I realize that many reject this viewpoint for various reasons, some of which we have already discussed. But I have never had any difficulty in believing the Bible and the creation account contained therein. I found nothing which would make me doubt its validity. To many, it seems just too unbelievable that the biblical account could possibly be what really happened. But I find it much less so than trying to come to terms with the idea that at some point tens of millions or billions of years ago, man and everything else that exists on our planet was nothing more than an accidental combining of lifeless substances in some sort of primordial sludge that somehow took on a life of its own volition and then proceeded to evolve into every form of life that exists today. This belief is known as evolutionism, and has been dismissed by the vast majority of the honest scientific community as having no basis in reality. Although to hear the secular humanists tell it, it's been proven beyond a shadow of any doubt. If you ask me, this theory requires a great deal more faith to believe than creationism does. The truth is that more and more scientists have come to, or are coming to, the conclusion that all things, whatever they may be, have been designed by an intelligence greater than ourselves. And if all things have been designed, then it logically follows that there must be a designer. With the singular exception of the now defunct theory of evolution, I have heard of no other explanation given to date as to any alternate belief with regards to our existence other than that of creation. The means of creations may differ by culture and ancestral heritage, but the belief in creation itself is global in its scope and acceptance. Someone who willfully holds on to a belief that is no longer deemed to have any scientific validity whatsoever does so because of their refusal to accept the only alternative, creation, and the therefore inherent creator. But believing in a God who created and sustains all things was never my problem. My problem was wondering why a God who was out there somewhere in our vast universe hanging around and being perfect all the time, would care one way or the other about me personally, let alone have some kind of purpose in mind for my individual life. This was my reason for my search. I just couldn't get the part about God really caring what happened to me personally, as nothing in my life seemed to lend any credence to that being the case. I had reached a point where I literally cried out to God and pleaded with Him to show me that He really did care about me and my life, and that He was involved in what happened to me and played some part in my destiny. This was the moment when God, in His great mercy towards me, began to reveal just how involved He really was in the affairs of man and the universe at large. The first thought that He brought to my mind was that He and what we call the universe are one. From there, one thought after another flowed through my mind, each thought building on the last, the final result being this book, in which the great majority of those revelations are written for your consideration. For me, the concepts and premises set forth in this volume are revelations, as my spirit within me is completely convinced of their validity. For you, perhaps, they are simply possibilities to ponder, or utter nonsense to be dismissed outright. Only you can decide that. If nothing else, my hypotheses, if considered solely on their own merit, should give you pause to contemplate the possibility of a God whose existence is so inseparably intertwined with every aspect, characteristic, phase, and facet of existence as to allow you to see the endless and inexorable depth of His involvement in every realm of creation and on every level of being. He is everywhere and in all things. He knows your mind, your intellect, emotions, thoughts, etc., and your spirit. He sees not only your actions, but knows your heart. He sustains you physically and provides for your needs. He is all things necessary for life as it was intended to be lived in this world. It is only when man determines that he doesn't need God, or so misconstrues God as to be rendered unblessable, that problems arise. The progression of my beliefs are simple. 1. God is the sum total of all things everywhere, regardless of the nature, facet, phase, or manner of that existence. 2. God created and sustains all things. 3. God is involved with every facet of life and existence. He is the very substance which comprises all things physically, me included. He exists in all of space everywhere, and there is no place anywhere where He does not exist. God is therefore ever present in us, as us, and surrounding us. 4. God created man as a triune being like Himself, with a body, soul, and spirit. 5. God created our body to connect us to Him and our surroundings physically. 6. God created us with a soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions. It is the part of us that is the real us, our personality, character, and self-will. 7. God created us with a spirit to connect us to Him spiritually, to empower and enable us to fulfill our purpose. 8. God has a purpose for our lives. 9. God's purpose for us is to become His children so that He might have someone to share His boundless love and eternity with. 10. God's purpose will be fulfilled with or without me. 11. God died in Jesus to give me the chance to accept His love. 12. I must make that choice, and I must accept the consequences if I don't. These, then, in a nutshell, are the conclusions that I have drawn. I consider myself to be an individualist and a free thinker. I determined at the very beginning of my search that I would consider all reasonable possibilities and concepts. I believe that everything I've come to accept as truth, and as a result have written down, are both logical and reasonable. I have not permitted anyone or anything to influence my search, or the resultant conclusions I have drawn. I researched the Bible as a source, and studied it as though it were all brand new to me. I read it like I would if someone had just handed it to me for the first time and asked me what I made of it. I carried no preconceived notions or prejudices with me, and allowed no hypocrisy to influence my own independent analysis of the subject matter. This is the approach you too must take if you are to be successful in your own quest for the truth and reason for being. Whether you come to these same conclusions or not, you cannot permit yourself to dismiss an entire body of work simply because of the attitudes or the hypocrisies of others. Judge the matter for yourself and come to your own independent conclusions. It has been my hope not only to express to you the unfathomable magnitude, infinite scope, limitless power, and eternal grandeur of God, but to show you that this same God knows how many hairs you have on your head, what your concerns and needs are, and has a plan designed specifically for your individual life. God is indeed a universal God, but He is also very much a God of individual souls. He who sets the planets and stars in their places loves you one-on-one. This is the God who is real, who is worthy, and whom you should seek, for if you seek Him out, you will most assuredly find Him. There is no distance between you and Him. He is beside you, He is around you, He is in you, and He is through you. Seek Him while you may. I invite you now to sincerely and genuinely consider the truths and concepts that I have presented, come to believe, and have stated herein, not only from an intellectual standpoint or by the way of a purely logical approach, but on a spiritual level as well. If the concepts as regard the universe and our place in it make sense to you, then won't you at least consider the rest of the book as also having the possibility of holding the truth? There is nothing more for me to say on this topic that I haven't already stated several times over. So I will move on to the next section and wish you every success as your quest for the truth and your personal search for your reason for being continues.